The most tangible result of the phone call on Friday, September 19th, between Donald Trump and Xi Jinping seems to be that the two leaders will meet, in fact, have a series of meetings coming up. The first one being in about 6 weeks in South Korea. And then President Trump said that he would like to visit China at some point early next year. And Xi Jinping said he will reciprocate with a visit to the United States at an appropriate time. So that shows that the two leaders want to continue and deepen the negotiations on a variety of trade matters that were very tense at the beginning of this year, well, in April, when President Trump extended tariffs well over 100% on Chinese goods coming to the United States, and China reciprocated with similar tariffs, although at a slightly lower rate, on U.S. goods. Almost immediately thereafter, the two leaders de-escalated that part of the dispute or the negotiations, dropped the tariff rates, and now they've been discussing intensely for the last couple of weeks TikTok. There is a U.S. law enacted last year and upheld by the U.S. Supreme Court that requires that if TikTok is to operate in the United States, it must be separated from ByteDance, its Chinese parent company, in other words, sold to an American investor, because of concerns that if ByteDance is in control, then information about U.S. users of TikTok could be passed on to the Chinese government. President Trump has ignored that law by extending the deadline for implementing it a few times, and now, after the phone call with Xi Jinping, he said he would extend the deadline for the sale of TikTok in the United States until December. And Xi Jinping reciprocated by saying, okay, then I can accept that these negotiations will happen, even though previously Xi Jinping had said, no, he'll be against any sale of TikTok's U.S. entities. So that's another outcome, progress on the TikTok discussion. President Trump also said they talked about Russia and Ukraine, and it seems that would mean that President Trump is trying to persuade China to reduce its support, economic support for Russia in its invasion of Ukraine and join the U.S. in putting pressure on Russia, most likely by having China reduce its purchases of cheap Russian oil. President Trump also, I think quite notably, said he has a great relationship with Xi Jinping and that U.S.-Chinese relations are positive. All of that indicating that President Trump wants to negotiate some sort of a package trade agreement with China, even as President Trump applies much higher sanctions than on China to some U.S. friends and allies. And this all comes after President Trump was very angry just a couple of weeks ago during the Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting in Beijing and the parade, which was attended by India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi, which is remarkable since India and China have been foes for so long, as well as by Vladimir Putin, of course, and Central Asian leaders, Kasimir Tokayev, as well as President Mirziyoyev of Uzbekistan, President Rahmon of Tajikistan, and also President Lukashenko of Belarus. This time, President Trump said that was a magnificent parade after he had criticized it as a gathering of leaders who were conspiring against the United States. So the phone call seems to show that President Trump and Xi are really trying to negotiate a de-escalated trade relationship between the two countries. And China needs that because its economy is quite weak.